Welcome. I'm Sue Friedman, Executive Director of FORCE. I run our research programs. I'm really excited to share with you today a brand new feature to the FORCE website, our new and improved HBOC Research Study Search Tool. Today, I'll help you find important information and resources to share with others who wish to participate in research. We recognize that participating in research can be very complex and personal. We don't expect you as a volunteer to memorize all that we have to offer, but we do want you to know how to easily find answers to many questions people will have about research and help them find studies that are enrolling people like them. So I will be walking you through how to navigate this new section of our site, and we'll highlight the most asked about topics. You can trust the information shared on the site because it has been reviewed by our Medical Advisory Board, who are experts in hereditary cancers. Just a reminder that you can pause, rewind, and fast forward when you need to so that you don't miss anything. Just hover your cursor at the bottom of the screen near the Volunteer Force Academy logo for this image to appear. And I'll be asking questions throughout to help reinforce important points. Also, as a reminder that our organization's efforts and our website are designed based on our programs in 4 pillars. So our 4 pillars are support, education, advocacy, and research. And the efforts I'll be talking about today in the program falls under our research work. So why participate in research? There are many reasons why research is important for us to see better options. I'm going to share with you that research saves lives. Every advancement that we see today in treatment, prevention, or care of hereditary cancer has come from research that was completed in the past. But without participants, research studies close early. And when they do close, it's a waste. It's a waste of dollars. It's a waste of participant and researcher time. So being able to help people find research studies to participate in is critically important as conducting the research itself. Unfortunately, there are barriers to research, and few adults participate in clinical trials, and few doctors and nurses refer people to clinical trials. One analysis of drug clinical trials showed that 40% of them, that's almost half, couldn't enroll enough people to be completed. The language that researchers use to talk about clinical trials can be complicated. It's not on purpose, but it can be intimidating to patients and people considering enrolling in research. This is an example of something called a study design schema. Instead of simplifying things, schemas can make a study seem very, very complicated, and this is one example. Here's an example of an official list of inclusion criteria for a research study. Once again, it's really technical and can be intimidating for people who don't understand the language of research. Most of this is geared to healthcare professionals, and not all of this is necessary for people to take that first step to see if they're eligible or to see if they want to participate in a clinical trial. Research requires the right patient to be matched to the right research study. So if we look at research studies as puzzles, and we look at these puzzle pieces, you can see that the puzzle on the left is an HBOC research clinical trial. And it really needs that O patient, that one person that fits the mold and can complete the study. But if that patient, that letter O patient, ends up in a study that's not specific to hereditary cancer, we may miss the opportunity for them to participate in the HBOC specific trial, and that trial may not have enough patients that have HBOC and could close. So ideally, if we could get that HBOC patient into a study specific to HBOC, then the other patients that would qualify for the study that's not about HBOC could complete the other study, and we can get both studies and both research completed, because both of them are important. And if we can help match people to studies for which they're uniquely qualified, we can make sure that more research gets completed. There's also a lot of myths and misinformation about research. Some of the common myths and the facts are listed here. There is a sense that research is only for people who have no other options, and that's not true. There are research studies available for risk, prevention, detection, quality of life, and treatment studies as well. Some of the treatment studies are for people with early stage disease, and some are for people who have advanced disease. There's a sense that participating in research may be dangerous, and certainly there are some risks with research. But there are a lot of safety measures built into research studies to protect patients and participants, and we're going to talk about that, where you can find more information about it. There are also people who are worried that participating in research means that they're going to be denied treatment or treated like a guinea pig. But in fact, patients who are enrolled in clinical trials are usually followed very, very closely. There's also a belief that, if I don't participate, the next person will. And unfortunately, the truth is only about 3% of adult cancer patients participate in clinical trials. And as I said before, clinical trials that can't get completed close early. Another big myth is that if the doctor didn't refer someone to a clinical trial, they must not qualify. But in truth, doctors may not be aware of clinical trials that are outside of their facility. They may have other reasons why they're reluctant to refer patients. So I'm going to ask you a question. Now we'll pause and ask a question. True or false? Clinical trials are only for people who have exhausted all other treatment options. Of course, the answer to that is false. This is false. There are clinical trials for people all along the care continuum, from diagnosis to advanced stage recurrent cancer. There are studies for people without cancer, but who are high risk. This is important because people have a right to know about all their options, including clinical trials. Some treatments may keep people from participating in clinical trials, so people need to know about their options before even starting treatment. So research participation is critical to improvements in medical options and patient outcomes. But there are so many challenges which make it hard for people to enroll in research. How do we help this situation so that we can advance science? That is the goal of our HBOC Research Study Search Tool. You, as a volunteer, hold the key to encouraging and helping members of our community find and enroll in research. So if you are informed, they can be informed. We have created the tools to help you and help them find research studies. The second tab from the left on our website is the Research and Clinical Trials tab. You will find a drop-down box of resources and information about HBOC research. Here's the drop-down options when you roll over and enroll in research. This is the section with the tools we'll be guiding you through in this webinar. And you can see that there's different sections: featured research, before you search for studies, begin your search, and join the About network. So we're going to talk a little bit about some tips for people who are interested in learning about research but aren't sure yet. They're not quite ready to search for research studies. We've put together some tips for them. When you click on that section, what you get is 4 different boxes, and the upper left-hand box has tips for searching studies. The first tab is Basic Search Tips, and it has an overview. It talks about the search tool itself and how it's organized. So if you click there, you'll learn about the search tool itself and some tips for searching within our search tool. When you click on that, it opens up a few different sections. One is the basic tips for searching studies. And then when you click on searching treatment studies, you get specific tips for searching for studies that are open to people who are in treatment for cancer. It has tips and information about searching for each type of cancer that we cover, including breast cancer, ovarian cancer, prostate cancer, pancreatic cancer, and melanoma. Treatment studies for each cancer type have specific subcategories based on how these cancers are usually approached from a treatment perspective. We'll have more about that later. Treatment studies for each cancer type have specific subcategories based on how these cancers are usually approached from a treatment perspective. We'll have more about that later. The tips section outlines what those subcategories are for each of the different cancer types. Then we have a section with tips for searching for prevention, detection, and risk studies. This is what the section looks like with these tips. The next section provides some tips for searching quality of life and well-being studies. Quality of life studies may be categorized for survivors by cancer type or for high-risk individuals. They may be categorized by the symptoms or conditions they're addressing, such as sexuality or sleep issues or fatigue. This section gives you tips for how to search for these studies. One barrier that we've heard over and over from patients who want to enroll in clinical trials is the challenge of finding studies they're eligible for and understanding research study eligibility in general. So we've prepared an area that talks about tips about learning if you're eligible for a study. And this is what that section looks like. It's important to note that researchers have to indicate who they're studying when they design a research study and before they begin enrolling. The study population is chosen based on several factors, including their ability to enroll enough people and to measure differences between one group over another. Smaller segments of the community may be harder to enroll. This is why there are fewer studies for people with newly discovered mutations like PALB2 or ATM. It doesn't mean the research community or force is not interested in this segment of our community. It means there may not be enough people identified yet for researchers to design a study for this population. However, this is beginning to change, and there are more and more studies for people with the less common mutation. So the next step is you found a study. Now what? This section has basic information on next steps, what participant rights are, how to talk to study coordinators, what the next steps are if you really think you want to be involved in a clinical trial and before you actually enroll. The first section is about contacting the study team. This may seem like a very small thing, but it's really important. One of the things that we learned from speaking to patients is that sometimes they're intimidated about talking to a study nurse or a doctor about a clinical trial. So this section is really designed to help walk people through that. The study contact is an important person. It's their job to answer questions and help people understand the study and figure out if they're eligible and if they want to participate. We've assembled tips to make it less intimidating and compiled some questions for people to ask of the study nurse or coordinator when they do contact them. The next section focuses on rights of patients in research. In the United States, research is pretty well regulated, so there's a lot of rights for participants. It's important people know about that because, as we said before, it's a common myth that people think that research is really dangerous and not regulated. We include a section on the informed consent form because this is a required document for researchers to provide to participants to make sure that they know their rights, how to contact the study team, and how to withdraw from a study. In addition to informed consent forms, clinical trials have added layers of safety measures that help assure that participants are protected from harm. We go over that in this section, clinical trial safety. This is the section where we address some of the misconceptions about research and especially clinical trials. It includes discussion about the informed consent form, institutional review boards, withdrawing from a study, and also the use of placebos or sugar pills so that people can understand when they're used and how they're used to ensure the safety of study participants. The last section provides additional thoughts and tips for people who are trying to decide if they do or do not wish to participate in a clinical trial. We go over the benefits, the risks, and the costs of participation. We encourage people to speak with their healthcare team before and after they enroll. And we encourage people to speak to their support system as well. So the next box has other resources. We'll go through these as well. We have research frequently asked questions section, which pretty much speaks for itself. And this is what it looks like. We also have a glossary of terms, and you'll see this a little later when we start talking about the study details. This is what it looks like. We also direct people to our peer navigation program. This is why it's so important that you know about this study tool because you may be getting calls as volunteers or users may be asking you about participating in research and how to find research studies. And then we have a section with other resources, which include other research study matching tools, places where people can find information about financial support for participating in research. And this is what the page looks like. It's really a link to other resources. The last section is our featured research studies. Our featured research page are larger studies, global studies, important studies, where the researchers have reached out to FORCE for additional recruitment assistance, or studies that are particularly relevant to our community. I'd like to go over a little bit about what you'll find on the featured research page when you look at the studies. The first part is the name of the study, which is circled in red here. Most large studies and those funded by the government are listed in a giant database known as clinicaltrials.gov, and we'll be talking about that a little later. It's a giant database of research studies, and it's maintained by the National Institutes of Health. Clinicaltrials.gov contains United States and international research studies. studies listed there are given a unique identification number that begins with NCT, followed by a number. We include the clinicaltrials.gov study identifier and a link to the study in the clinicaltrials.gov database. You may notice too that some studies, especially some of the interviews and survey type studies, may not have a clinicaltrials.gov identifier number. This is what a clinical trial looks like on clinicaltrials.gov. You can see that there's the clinical trials identifier number on the screen on the right. The next section is the type of study. So it tells you if it's a treatment study, a prevention, detection, or risk study, quality of life and well-being study, or a survey, registry, or interview type study. It also talks about the type of cancer when appropriate. So for example, if you look at the middle study on the top, it says treatment ovarian. So this is a study for ovarian cancer treatment. And then when you click on more info, it takes you to a study detail page for each of the studies. And we'll look at that in a second. So this is what the study detail page looks like. And this study is called the WISP study. This is actually a study to look at the effects of removing the fallopian tubes only in high-risk women to lower the risk for ovarian cancer. And we'll go over some of the features of our the study page. We've tried to make the language on the study page more user-friendly than what you would see on clinicaltrials.gov. We'll take you to another study detail page so you can see what it looks like for another study. IMPRESS, this is a study looking at memory changes in people who have had risk-reducing removal of their ovaries. If you look on the study detail page, there's a study contact information area. So it tells you how to get in touch with the study team. And again, this is really important. As we mentioned before, some people are intimidated about reaching out and talking to the study team or the study coordinator. So we really want to encourage you to encourage them to do so. And it's why it's so important that we put the study contact information somewhere that's very accessible to people. And we encourage them to reach out if they have any questions about participating in the study. At the top where it says about the study, we usually provide a short overview about the study, really outlining the goals of the study so that people can look at it at a glance and understand what the research study is about. And then we provide a little more details for people who want to know more about it. So they're interested and they think they may want to participate, but they want to understand more about the study design, what they're going to be asked to do within the study. So this shows what does the study entail. And then on the right, in the circled area, you can see that we've highlighted the eligibility and the exclusion criteria. So this can help people find at a glance whether or not they would qualify for this study, which, as you recall, we said is one of those things that can keep people from participating in the study, is not being able to tell if they qualify for the study. I'm going to highlight one more feature of these study detail pages, and that is our dynamic glossary. So right here we have circled RRSO, which you probably know stands for Risk Reducing Salpingo Oophorectomy. When someone hovers over it, it pops up a definition that's directly from our glossary that we showed you before. So people don't have to go over to the glossary in order to find the definition of a word within one of these detail pages. Because as we said before, the study language can be very complicated, and scientists don't always speak in the same language that consumers do. And here's another example, placebo. This is a pancreatic cancer detection study that's also posted on our featured research page. This is what the same study looks like on clinicaltrials.gov. It's a little bit less user-friendly, it's more text, it's really very close to the same information, but we tried to make it more user-friendly so that people aren't so intimidated by how the information is presented to them. So we have another question for you. Clinicaltrials.gov is a website that was developed and is maintained by for-profit companies. True or false? So the answer to this is false. Clinicaltrials.gov is a government-developed and maintained website and a database of research studies through the National Institutes of Health. Most large clinical trials are posted in clinicaltrials.gov. Good job. Okay, so now people know how to search. They've got the tips. They know what to do when they find the study, and they know how to find other resources. So now let's go and search for studies. All they have to do is go click on Search Now. When they do, it will open up a page with 4 new boxes. Each box is the different types of research studies that we have organized within our database. So the first section is treatment. And the treatment studies are categorized by the cancer type. And then once you click on the cancer type, it will open up some selections that allow you to click on certain subtypes. And we'll go through that. So this is breast cancer. If you're looking for a breast cancer treatment study, you click on breast cancer. And it opens up some options. You can filter the breast cancer treatment studies by stage, or you can just click any stage and it will give you all the stages. Or you can do stage 0, stage 1, 2 or 3, and then stage 4, which is metastatic breast cancer. You can narrow down the breast cancer search by subtype, which is the way we have it organized is ER/PR positive or hormone positive and triple negative, or any subtype. And then you can narrow down the search by BRCA or mutation. And then there's the option of putting in a keyword. A keyword can be a type of treatment. A keyword can be a gene mutation. It can be the name of a drug, like olaparib or metformin. And then you hit search. We'll go through a bit all the cancers so that you can see what it looks like for each of them. So ovarian cancer, similar. You're looking for ovarian cancer treatment study. And when you click on that, it's organized by any or newly diagnosed or recurrent ovarian cancer. Genetic marker can be BRCA, Lynch syndrome, or other. And then you can put in a keyword, and again, that keyword can help you narrow it down even more if you're looking for a clinical trial with a certain type of, using a certain type of drug. One thing to say about keywords is that spelling does matter. And so, you know, if you ever do a search and you don't get any results, try doing that same search without the keyword, or check the spelling and make sure that you have the spelling right. So then we have pancreatic cancer. And again, you can search by stage. and it's organized a little different than breast and ovarian into resectable, borderline resectable, unresectable, and metastatic. Genetic test or marker. And then the keyword, which again, you can put in a gene, or you can put in a drug, or you can put in any keyword that you'd like. And similarly, prostate cancer is organized into any or newly diagnosed or recurrent. And then castration sensitivity, so they can be castration sensitive and castration resistant. The genetic marker and the keyword. And then for melanoma, it's again, the stage is based on early stage, locally advanced, and metastatic. Genetic marker or keyword. Let's go through now the prevention, detection, and risk studies. Then we'll show you a little later what it looks like after you hit search and what the search results look like. These are categorized by the type of study and the cancer type. So you can click on any cancer type, or you can narrow it down to breast, ovarian, pancreatic, prostate, or melanoma. You can narrow down the intervention type to screening, early detection, and risk versus risk reduction, which is in its own category. And then you can put in a keyword search. Similarly, quality of life and well-being studies are also categorized. You can choose any cancer type or high risk but no cancer. So this is based on the type of cancer that the person has, or if they're high risk, you would choose high risk but no cancer for them. And then you can choose the different types of study topics that would fall under quality of life and well-being. And if you don't see, if it's something that's not on the list, then select other. And then you can put in a keyword. We put in yoga just as an example. And then the last category are surveys, registries, and interviews. And they are not categorized. This is a smaller subset of studies. And once you search, it just takes you directly to the study results. So, it's time for another quiz question. True or false? The Research Study Search Tool can help previvors find research studies. True or false? This is true. Good job. There are prevention, detection, and risk studies open to previvors. There's also quality of life, well-being, surveys, interviews, and registry studies for high-risk individuals as well. So what happens when you hit the search button for a study search? When you hit the search button, it looks in two different databases. So our tool is looking for clinical trials based on the criteria that the user selects. It looks in two databases. One is the featured research database. So in general, these are studies that are larger studies enrolling HBOC patients, or studies where we're participating or we're partnering with the researchers to help with their recruitment. The second part of the search is that the search tool searches clinicaltrials.gov for additional research studies. So two different types of results and two different databases. On the top are the featured research results, and on the bottom are the results from clinicaltrials.gov. And we'll go through this in a little bit more detail. If you click on a search result that came from, it's on the top, so it came from our featured research page. If you click on more information, it takes you to the study detail page. So that looks a lot like it did when we were looking at it before, when we clicked on more info from the featured research page. And again, this is organized just like the other study detail pages that we went over earlier. If you click on a result from the bottom, these are results from clinicaltrials.gov. So it takes you to the clinicaltrials.gov listing for that study. There will be a lot more study results, usually, in the clinicaltrials.gov category than the featured research category. That's not always true, but a lot of times it's true. The featured research studies are really ones that we've chosen that are specifically looking for people with HBOC type cancers. You can copy and send the search URL in your browser if you want to share search results with a member. So if they gave you the criteria and you filled in all that information and you hit search, the search results area, that URL, you can copy that. You can send it to a user and they can actually print it up, share it with their healthcare provider. So this is an easy way to share the results that you're seeing with other people. We're going to go over another one. In this case, we're searching pancreatic cancer, metastatic, and BRCA. And we hit search, and here are the studies that we find. The ones on the top are two studies that are specifically from our featured research study database, and the ones on the bottom are from clinicaltrials.gov. You will notice that sometimes the same study is listed in both databases. That makes sense. However, I think that our version is probably a little more user-friendly than the one from clinicaltrials.gov. So here's more, if you click on more information for Polo, this is what it looks like in the study detail page in our database. If you click on the same study in clinicaltrials.gov, this is what it looks like. Again, maybe a little more intimidating to many people. It's really pretty much the same information. It's certainly more detailed in clinicaltrials.gov. So here's another search we're doing. We're looking for a prevention, detection, risk study. We've chosen ovarian cancer and risk reduction. So let's see what happens when we hit search. Well, we've seen this study before. The WISH study is an ovarian cancer detection study looking at removal of the fallopian tube. And here's a quality of life and well-being study. In this case, we're searching prostate cancer and sexual and reproductive health. And you can note that our results have no featured research results in it, which is one of the reasons why we designed this matching tool to also search clinicaltrials.gov. In case there were no featured research studies, we don't want to give people the message that there are no studies they can participate in. We certainly want them to find other studies that may be available to them in clinicaltrials.gov. Here's another study, here's another search. High risk but no cancer, and memory and cognition. And when we hit the search, we get two studies. Impress, which we went over before, and another study, an online study of memory and attention in high-risk women, neither of which pulled up in the clinicaltrials.gov search, even though actually at least one of them, I believe, is in there. This is why we have both databases as part of our search. We want to make sure that we provide people with the most information that we can about research studies for which they may qualify, because we want to encourage people and remove any barriers to participation that we can. So finally, we're going to go over what happens when you search for surveys, registries, and interviews. In this case, this only searches our featured research page. And the reason is that our featured research database. The reason is there's a lot of registries out there, and it's a lot harder to build a search for a registry and match people to it. So we've tried to include all of the registries for which people might qualify, and we'll be adding more over time. So we encourage people to check back frequently. So one final question for you. Why is research so important to the HBOC community? And here are your options. There continues to be many unanswered questions about the best way to improve health outcomes in people with HBOC. New discoveries will improve the quality of life and survival of people affected by HBOC. Or C, provide better risk management options. The answer is all the above. I'm sure that you got that right. Good job, everyone. Thank you so much. Just a few key takeaway messages for you. One is that studies are open and enrolling people across the entire HBOC community. Helping people find and enroll in research is important. It's an important way to advance the science and give more options for our future. You can also help dispel myths and encourage people to contact the study team for more information. Understanding the language of research can be complicated, and finding studies can be confusing, but our resources can help people understand their rights and their options. So thank you so much for your attention. Thank you for volunteering for FORCE, and thank you so much for being that conduit to help people find and enroll in clinical trials that are so critical to our community. You're making a difference, and we appreciate you. Thank you.